Everyone. Welcome. No matter where you're tuning in from, my cat's going to help you out here. No matter where you're at, if you're in a city, a countryside, an island, or anywhere in between, welcome to the Peapod. This is a Peapod, a podcast about peace. I am Teri Angel. I'm delighted that you've chosen to spend time with us today. And if you're finding this, please help us share it out. Send it out to someone that you know could use some inspiration, because boy, do we have it in bucketfuls today. So speaking of peace, imagine for a moment a world without constant conflict, a world where respect for diversity is the norm, a world where understanding replaces fear. If that sounds like a dream to you, that's okay, because that's the world we dare to dream of, and that's the world we strive to build here, one conversation at a time, inside the Peapod. Each week we explore the theme of peace from various angles. We engage with thought leaders, peace activists, scholars, artists, authors, and everyday heroes, all of whom are united by a common purpose, the pursuit of peace. This is a space for stories that heal, stories that bring us together, stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Robert Fulghum says, peace is not something you wish for, it's something you make, something you are, something you do, and something you give away. Here at the Peapod, we believe that peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice. It's the celebration of diversity. And most important, it is something that begins within each one of us. So let's begin this journey together, shall we? Please help me welcome to the Peapod, David Strickel. David has spent a lifetime going deep into his, what he calls, inner wisdom. He recalls at an early age of 5 being skeptical of what he was being taught by those surrounding him. David learned to rely almost exclusively on his own inner wisdom, clarity that he was not receiving from the external world, and it guided him to teach himself the things he wished to learn, rather than waiting on anyone else to understand his learning style enough to help him. David began meditating in 2010 and almost immediately had a Kundalini awakening during meditation. In 2017, he left a lucrative corporate career to begin sharing his inner wisdom with the world. He was guided to refer to this wisdom as the stream. The name seemed perfect because he now understood that it was not human or beings, but pure source that was flowing through him and offering so much. He knew that his mission was to share this with humanity and that he would dedicate the rest of his human journey to this. So please help me welcome David Strickel to the Peapod. Hello, David.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, absolutely. I want to make sure that I have your information up here. So the website that I'm showing is thestreamofdavid.com, where I think people can find out more about you. And oh my gosh, what more there is to find out. I have been following you ever since I was told about you, actually, by a mutual friend, Debbie Sliker. And she spoke so highly of you, I knew I had to meet you. And so we did have a short meeting and decided that we needed to be more involved with each other. And so here you are as my guest on the Peapod, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, I can't wait to dig into this because I think we have a lot of great stuff to talk about and to share.
We sure do. So I shared a little bit about your journey. I got that from LinkedIn, as a matter of fact, which I thought was really awesome. You know, LinkedIn can be very valuable. And I love learning the backstories about people. So tell us what you're doing and how we can follow along more. I know I follow you on all social media. I'm like a David stalker. So,
I
share with
appreciate my stalkers very much. I have yet to have anyone show up at my house, so I'm good. I love stalkers.
us.
I like the introduction said, this is something that I think everyone has source within them, or God, however you refer to that. We are all beings of that. And the thing that has really worked out for me is I had a childhood with very disconnected parents. And I really relied on my inner knowing, inner wisdom that I believe we all have, instead of really listening to the outside world. And that made me an early skeptic of what I was being taught. And I learned over time to appreciate those external teachings without necessarily adopting them as my own belief system. And that got me kicked out of Sunday school, among other things.
Mhm.
But it really worked for me. And it didn't make me, some sort of super enlightened, perfect being. I still do not consider myself that necessarily. But it definitely set me on this path of understanding conscious creation, understanding our nature as eternal beings here having this temporary human experience, and the nature of humanity in general. And it's brought me to this high appreciation of humanity exactly as it is. And it's interesting because when I say that, people say, well, you talk about world peace. Shouldn't we want world peace? Well, appreciating humanity the way that it is isn't about not wanting improvement or growth or expansion. It's just understanding that the path to that is through appreciation rather than pushing against and fighting and judging. And I know you know that. I can tell you know that. So it'll be an interesting conversation to have about how do we go about manifesting that.
Right. And yeah, and I fully believe it has to start inside of each one of us. So, when people say I want peace, a lot of times they think something out there, in this vast world that we live in, when it really has to start on the inside, because that outside world is a reflection of what's going on the inside.
And people that are longing for peace and in a vibration that they won't have peace for themselves until the whole world is peaceful. And you're right, it's one light at a time. That's the way to world peace is having inner peace and appreciation of self and your journey and all that is. That's the recipe for it. We if we want that, we have to be that.
Yes. And David, to me, it's the same thing as people say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get that house, that new car, that job. And it's like that's backwards. Be happy so that all this stuff can show up in your life. And to me, it's the same thing. Be peaceful so that peace will show up in your life, right?
Exactly. And the thing that I taught myself, one of the valuable lessons that I taught myself by ignoring some of what I was getting as a young adult was that, yes, I figured out how to manifest all the stuff that Instagram tells us we're supposed to have in marketing and otherwise. And I got the stuff because I simply believed in it, and you receive what you believe. And then the stuff made me happy to a point, but I realized there was still this big missing piece of the puzzle, and I knew it wasn't necessarily what most religion was telling me that was missing. It was something else. And what is that? That's when I married the concept, oh, this inner knowing isn't just my own intelligence. It's something that's way beyond that. And it's something that we all have. And it's something that we're taught to ignore and shut down and pay attention to what we're being taught instead.
Yeah, definitely. And oh my gosh, we have so many synchronicities in our lives, David, because I got kicked out also for asking too many questions. You just don't question that. You just accept it as it is. But you're probably familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements. And there's a fifth agreement that says be skeptical and be open-minded. And I feel like that was the start for me years and years ago when things just didn't make sense. And I wanted it to make sense. I wanted to understand more. So I was skeptical. And like you, I got in trouble for it. But it was the best thing that happened because then I could go on and explore and find what real connection with spirit is all about. And, honoring that connection instead of just being told to accept just accept. But anyway,
Yeah, it's like there's a difference between judgment and discernment. And a
yes,
lot of times we get into spiritual practice and we think, well, we're not allowed to judge anything. Well, I never say you're not allowed to. It's more about detuning judgment and understanding that we are still physical beings. We will always have an ego, and the function of our ego is to discern preferences. I would like to experience this. I would not like to experience that, or I would rather not. And the vibration behind that, the preference away from something, that skepticism piece, is not the same thing as labeling something this shouldn't exist.
right.
That's a different, very different vibration.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So when we question, we get answers. This is what I work very closely with the angels, and this is what they've always told me: ask the questions. And as little kids, we do that, don't we? We do it uninhibitedly. We're just like, a little kid will come up to you and just blurt out something that they want to know, and usually there's an embarrassed parent somewhere.
Yeah, they haven't developed that matrix filter yet, which is a good thing.
It's a great thing. So I've always heard from the angels and from my spirit guides: ask the questions. If you want to know, ask. And that's where we're led to, like, a stream of consciousness. So tell us about that experience. What was it like for you to start receiving that stream of consciousness that started delivering messages to you? And I before you share, I read that you used to go into the trance to bring that message through in order to set aside your ego.
Mhm.
So was there a transition where all of a sudden it was just like free flowing and you didn't have to do anything, go into any kind of trance to do it?
There was a couple of big milestones because I had the knowing from childhood that I just never, drowned out with my ego and other beliefs. But that Kundalini experience in 2010 was a big turning point for me energetically, that unleashed something that I would say was like a higher level. It's like I was holding back, and I understood conscious creation. From my impoverished childhood, I kind of thought, well, rich means happy. So if I just make
Mhm.
myself rich, I'll probably be happy. And that was around the time 4041, where I had all the stuff that I thought a rich person was supposed to have, and I still wasn't happy. So I went deeper and I meditated. And when I started meditating, I had this Kundalini awakening that electrified me. And in that process, that set me off on this 10 to 12-year journey of understanding that I'm a channel and what that is, teaching myself how to speak it and write it, teaching myself to shut down the ego so I could get really clear, all the way around to what happened in the past couple of years, which is understanding that I can still do that,
Mhm.
but I'm blended with it now where it just flows. It's flowing now. It's here. It's flowing. It's my ego and that are intertwined, but I know how to step my ego back without putting myself in a trance. And I know how to let that source consciousness flow in casual conversation, which actually allows me to reach more people. As many people love the Abraham experience and the David going into trance and channeling source directly experience, many more are served by just a casual conversation. You mentioned TikTok. I used to channel on TikTok. You can go back into my TikTok from a couple of years ago. The channeling videos got, 150 views. I go on as me and I get 20,000 views. I have one that's 600,000 views. That's me. It's
Right.
like the channeling just doesn't connect with as many people as the blended version of me seems to connect. I'm here to share this with everyone and anyone wherever they are in their journey, if they're aligned with it. If they're not aligned with it, I get it. Scroll past me, ignore the bald dude. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But for those that are on this journey, there is definitely a connection that I make with people that are on this journey that have done the work. And usually by the time they get to me, they've done the law of attraction thing and they've done some of that stuff. And then they get to this, okay, I did that. I received from it. I got clear on it, but then I hit a wall. What's next? Because that was my journey as well. So I totally identify with that.
Mine too. Yeah, exactly. And it's that what next that's so exciting, isn't it? Yeah, there's
That's
a
very much so. That's my work now. I so geek out on this stuff that I love everyone that's just like, what's next? What's next? There's always more. There is always more. And my ego had told me in the past, oh, David, you really get, when I wrote my first book, that was all about my channeling journey. And when I published that book, I thought, this is it. This is everything. Little did I know, 5 years later, 6 years later, there was going to be so much more. That's why it took so long to write the current book, because I started writing it and then I rewrote it and rewrote it again. And it took 5 years to actually complete it, because I had to get to a point where I thought, okay, now it's fully cooked. It's ready. This is ready for prime time. I thought it was before, and I really knew that it wasn't. I was guided to hold on to it. Now it's ready, but that doesn't mean that this is the end either. This is just the beginning of something else. I can't wait to see what that is.
I know, right? It's so exciting just to keep receiving. And when we're open, we do keep receiving those messages and the inspiration and the guidance, tuning into that stream. For each of us, we have a stream of consciousness, and tuning into it gives us the what's next. So I want to encourage the listeners to ask your questions of David. We have a lot of people that are welcoming you and thanking you for sharing your journey. If you have any questions for David, please ask. If you're curious, just let us know. You mentioned your book, and I really want you to share that book with all of us, because I think it's exciting. And I'm just curious and excited to learn more about it and to delve more into it. I know you have a Facebook group for,
Yes.
do you pronounce it Tia or Taya?
TYA, TYA, TYA.
Taya, right.
TYA stands for trust your abundance.
Right. So
And
if
abundance
you
means whatever your well-being. It doesn't need, it's not a financial abundance thing. It can be, but it's not. It's whatever you want to experience in life is what we mean.
yeah, abundance could be anything at all.
Right.
So I would love for you to share more about the book, how it came to be, what we can expect from it, and share about your Facebook group that you have for it, please.
Sure. Well, when I started channeling, one of the questions that I asked was, why do we need another channel? Why am I quitting my job to do this? Because I had a really high paying, nice job. I wouldn't say that I loved it, but I was very financially secure in it. And I was really guided. That was sort of the last frontier of letting go for me to walk away from a biweekly paycheck and, sort of jump out of the airplane without a parachute and figure out how to land. Right. And my intention was, I don't want to just copy Abraham Hicks. The Esther Hicks made channeling very palatable for me, whereas I really judged it before discovering her. But I love the Abraham message. There were times that it frustrated me. I'll be very honest about that. But I didn't want to just be another knockoff of Abraham. We don't need that. We have Abraham, right? So my question was, what am I doing this for? What is this about? And it became very clear to me from source, I need to shut all that down, and I need to focus on the message that's flowing, and that it will become its own thing. And my intentionality was to simplify all of these big spiritual ideas as much as possible. Well, 6 years later, I would say that I feel very confident that I'm able to take these big concepts and sort of draw them down to something where anybody can apply them, because that was my intention. Not because I'm special or a guru or anything. It was my intention to simplify, because some of the sayings and the methodologies that I would hear would really confuse me. And there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of, human ego woven into everything, of course. And I wanted to just get all of that noise out of the way as much as possible and share true universal law, and how do we operate our lives as human beings in this very complicated world in alignment with universal law, instead of the matrix, instead of all the stuff that we're taught, which just sort of lowers our vibration. So with that intention, I started the podcast. And then from the podcast, I met this person almost immediately that taught me how to do an online course. And I kind of turned my nose up at it initially. I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do one of those cheesy courses and be selling a course all the time. And then the stream came through and said, kind of like, hey, dummy, listen to this. This is your path. You set this intention. This person has appeared in your life serendipitously 2 months after quitting my job. I wasn't looking for it, and is offering this path. Don't judge it. Dive in and absorb it, and there will be something in it for you. Well, sure enough, I created this little course called Abundance Breakthroughs People that listened to my podcast liked what I was teaching. They wanted to learn more. I had a very long line of people that wanted to come through and take this course. I can't tell you from there exactly what happened because it was very quick. It was very magical. That course transitioned to the TYA practice. I don't even remember coming up with the name. It just happened. The TYA practice, trust your abundance. Trust is everything. Trust the universe. Trust the process. And here's the key, trusting the process even when you think it isn't working. So when you're manifesting, when you're meditating and you're believing and you're receiving and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden it all just turns to crap, that's when we quit and say this, what was that book that everybody liked, The Secret? Oh, this is a bunch of crap. This doesn't work. Or that Abraham, or they're sitting in the hot seat, for the 5th time saying, I'm still not getting it, Abraham. I experience all of that, but it's about moving through that high, low vibrational flow, understanding that every time vibration drops, we're going down, and what we are creating may self-destruct. But what is actually happening is we are revealing what we need to work on next. Whether it's something in our past that we need to work on or something in our new creation, it's making a better version of us. It's making a better version of whatever we're creating. It is the universal process of creation. Start to create it, let the vibration drop, let it all go to hell, and then allow it to manifest again in a better formation. That's the process. And that linear time is what that's where the growth happens. That's where the expansion of consciousness comes in. As you know, this is what I'm experiencing now. It's not ideal, but this is what I'm moving through. You shared something like that with me just before you came on. And you know that this is what you're experiencing, and it's okay that you're experiencing it. And as you move through that, you're going to come out the other side an expanded being in the having of that experience. That's the purpose of life. That's why we're here. That's what it's all about. It's not creating stuff. The stuff is the sideshow, right? So that's what TYA is all about. And it's like, holy shit, Source has delivered all this because I finally was ready for it. And I created this practice, and then I spent 5 years teaching it to other people through my course. And I got to a point where I said, okay, now I want to take this to a larger audience. Not everybody can afford to take my, program. And every time I ever met somebody that didn't have the money, I always gave them homework. This is what you do. This is how you listen. I teach this everywhere, whether you pay me or not. This is what you do. And that made me feel really good that I wasn't just a high ticket coach trying to, get people into a high ticket program. And when I was ready to write the book, I thought, well, this is great. This is a platform where, if you're on Kindle Unlimited, it doesn't cost you a dime, or for $20, you can get the paperback. And this is the whole practice. It's not a pamphlet to take my program. We put everything in here. And the cool thing is that people read this, and those that have the money still come into the program anyway. So it all works out. It all works out.
It all works out. Everything is working perfectly.
I do want to teach it. Anybody that's aligned with it. I'm not about trying to get people into my program. That happens organically. I'm not worried about that. Anybody that wants to learn this, I teach it on TikTok. I teach it on YouTube. I teach it on the podcast. I teach it when I'm a guest on somebody. I love sharing this because this is the path to whatever we want to create for humanity. And I do think we're at a massive turning point right now. This isn't just a time where a bunch of spiritual kooks are getting together, believing it's special. No, it's special. That pandemic had meaning. AI has meaning. The hyperpolarization that we see in humanity has meaning. What's happening in politics has meaning. All of this stuff is not signs that the world is broken or ending. It's signs that the world is waking up.
I love that. Signs that the world is waking up. And, I've been saying for years now, the veil has been thinning, and there is no veil any longer. Things cannot be hidden. Everything is coming out. The truth is coming out. And it is a great time to be alive. I'm grateful for every day that I have alive because I'm seeing the transformation, the shift, the change that's happening in our world. And I'm so happy that we have connected because you've opened up another stream, of just being inundated in your energy, where you're teaching us about Source and getting connected with Source. And I just loved what you said, that it's not about material things. In my journey, my followers know I gave up everything material that I had except for the clothes on my back, and got in my car and I left. And I traveled the country still. But it's not about the material things. And when I realized that, it was like, oh, okay, that's got to go. That's just holding me down into the 3D, right? But David, I was listening to, I don't know if it was a YouTube or a TikTok that you did, where you were explaining about source and what source is. And I would love for you to share with us about that.
Source is everything. And I think the most recent TikTok that I put up, I talk about how source will never be something that can be proven or disproven because it is everything. A scientist would isolate something to study it. You can't isolate source because it's literally everything. We all know there's something more, and that's been given lots of labels. I don't think anyone's label is wrong, but we do humanize it. And I think a lot of times when we refer to God and angels and guides and things like that, we are humanizing source, and that's not bad. We are filtering. It's being filtered through our human mind, essentially. And I can tell you that I have absolutely felt that loving warmth of source, that I completely understand what angelic energy is. That's what that is. And it's like all of these things, Christ consciousness, all of these things that we create as human beings are versions or expressions of source. But as humans, sometimes we want to say, well, God is up here, and then we have angels, then we have guides, and then we have ascended masters, and then there's the Pleiadians, and there's all these things. And whatever you believe in is right for you. If it serves you, it's right for you. But it's all source. And that's why I like to just boil it down and say it's all source. I am channeling source. We are all channels of source in our own way. I don't necessarily think that we're all going to have the ability to write and speak source. Some people get really frustrated by that. That's sort of like saying, well, Adele. I just saw Adele in concert a couple of months ago. And I remember she was in an interview with Oprah, and she says, when I sing, it's coming from somewhere else. It's not me. Mm-hmm. She's channeling when she sings. Well, I can't sing like Adele. I would never come on a podcast and sing. You'd kick me off immediately. So we can't all expect to do the same thing, but just because you can't channel the way that I channel, if you're listening and you're frustrated by that, that doesn't mean that source isn't within you and that you don't express it in a different way. We're individuals. We're unique. We're this whole spectrum here of experiences. And so discover your version of channeling source, whatever that is. And it may just be rooted in your kind heart. And that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Not everybody needs to be a channel. Not everybody needs to sing like Adele. We would all love to. I would love to. But we're just not all here on the same journey. And the more you accept and appreciate that, then what you truly have going on with you, your own gifts, then those things get revealed because you're out of that low vibration of frustration. You're in a high vibration of appreciation.
I love that. I explore all religions, all of the teachings that are out there for us to learn from. And one of my favorite is the Buddhist teaching that God is in everything. Everything. We can look at a flower and see God, see source, whatever you want to call that being that is, creator. So I absolutely love it. And channeling can be drawing, painting, writing. It can be any multitude of things. It's not somebody just standing up and doing words coming out that you're bringing through from spirit. So I love that you took the time to share that, David. And yes, we all are here. We are a part of the oneness, but we are unique. I heard the word recently, somebody explaining it, that we're not separate, we're distinct. And I love that. Yeah.
I always say we're in duality. So other than source, there's duality in everything, including our experience. So our duality is source and ego. Our humanity and our source being creates this human experience, and the ego is there to sort of overshadow the source being so that we can have the messy human journey of contrast, right? Of positive and negative things. And our ego is creating all of that. Source is just there being the source. Source is like the electricity that's coming in. Here's the electricity. Now you go plug in and do whatever you want with it. The ego is the thing that's deciding whether you're going to turn on the blender or the television, right? That's what's concerning the preference. So ego is not bad. We just need to understand that we can settle it down to be a discerner of preference and not the main driver of our experience. Because we've been taught, we've collectively gotten together and decided, well, source is a judgmental God, and here's the rule book that that this God supposedly wrote how you're supposed to live. That's what that is. Don't question it, just believe, right? And fear. Well, source has never, ever, ever guided me to fear about anything. Anything ever, ever, ever. Source says you're an eternal being of light. Nothing here can end you. Nothing happening in this world will end that which you are. Period. And that goes for everyone and everything. That guided me to understanding that the harsh judgment we have of things that we don't prefer is the thing that's actually powering all that stuff. And when we take the harsh judgment away and simply discern a preference, I would rather not people be abused and harmed and have war and things like that. Of course, we can have that preference, but understanding that the harsh judgment is the thing that keeps it going.
Yeah, it is, because it's, when we talk about emotional empowerment and emotional intelligence, we understand that our thought leads to the emotions. Fear is an emotion. So if we're having a thought, we're having a judgment about something, even about God, then that emotion will come forth and keep coming forth until we understand it more. And I love how you're sharing about source in such a beautiful way, that it's not a judgmental being. That's how I grew up, in the church that I was in. It was
love God or he will damn you to hell.
Oh, hell and damnation.
And it didn't even rationally, it doesn't even make sense to me. What source has said to me is, we are all things. We are the creator of all that is. Why do we need you to worship us?
Yeah.
Why do we need you to obey us? Why would we, gift you with free will and then judge you for utilizing your free will? It's not even logical.
Right. I know. Yeah. But I'm studying a book right now with a group of A Course of Love. And the chapter that we just finished reading was just that. Like, does it even make sense that God would create this horrible place that he's going to just send people to? Is that love? We say God is love.
And judge it, but still allow it to happen. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah.
That wrapping your mind around that source doesn't judge any of it, and source is viewing suffering from a higher perspective of it's an experience. And it's interesting how we are able to make peace with our own suffering so much easier than we are often able to make peace with the suffering of others. We can deal with our stuff, we can move through it, and very often we'll sit around and say, gosh, I suffered as a child, but that led me to be a stronger person, or that led me through this experience, or it really motivated me to not have that again in my adult life, or whatever it was. We see the gifts in our own suffering, and then you see someone else suffering. We need to stop that. We need to stop their suffering. Again, there's nothing wrong with preferring that people don't suffer. That's my preference. But thinking you got to battle it and push against it and take that experience away from them. Mm-hmm. They're an eternal being of source, just like you, that came here to have this experience. And yet you want to take them away out of their experience because you judge it on their behalf. And we're told that it's being kind and benevolent to do that. Now, again, if I'm out and I see a dog, stuck in the traffic, I'm going to get out and help the dog. I'm going to help all that sort of thing. Of course I am. I'm not saying that you become callous and stop caring, but understand the energy behind it. The energy behind it, all of that labeling that we do, and we tend to label our world's transgressors as one-dimensional evil beings. Mm-hmm. And I do not believe there's any person on this planet that is pure evil.
Thank you.
They may go down a path that takes them into something that looks like that, but you're looking at the one dimension of them, and you're choosing not to see all of the good that's in them. You're choosing not to see the source, and there is source. Label whoever your villain is. Understand that there is source in that being, and that there is value in that experience, not just for them, but for everybody else.
Oh my gosh, I so love that. I say that we're all here playing a part. We're playing our part. And, this lifetime, I may be a villain. I may not be Teri Angel. I might be, this person who just absolutely doesn't care about anybody else except me. So every lifetime, I think we take on a role. And so those people, like you were saying, those that are so hated by others in the world, it's good to step back and just see that there is a being of light in there, but they're just playing that role. And yet we go into that judgment. Let's judge them. Let's say that they're bad. They're bad because if that's not what I am and what I look like, then it must be bad, right? That's the
Well,
judgment.
there's no healing power in that. It's like if you had
No.
a rocky childhood and you continually, judge your parents as being evil, terrible people, you're going to continue to recreate that throughout your lifetime. You're going to see them show up again in different forms. As long as you're doing that, that judgment is always running in the background. I call that your vibrational basement. All that stuff's in your vibrational basement and it's running 24/7. You might want to go down there and take a look at some of that stuff. And the way to clean it up is by appreciating it. What's the good? What's the morsel of good that I can focus on instead of all this other, stuff that I've been judging? Let me focus on that and grow that morsel of good and really detune that transgressor and get it out of my basement because it's weighting me down. It's dragging my vibration down.
Oh my gosh, what a great nugget you just gave us, David. Thank you for that. Because, I don't think we're alone. I think a lot of people have had those childhoods where we'd rather not even think about them sometimes, But like you were saying, it's there until we deal with it. And that to me is what emotional empowerment is all about, is the dealing with it, seeing it for what it is. It was an experience. We had it. It's done. But now let's take care of that baggage that we may still be dragging into our now moments, because that's where the hurt is. And we keep dragging it and regurgitating it and telling that story like it's still happening instead of putting it down and dealing with it and doing the forgiveness work and moving forward.
Absolutely. And, we talk about how in the human mindscape of beliefs, I call the matrix, we talk about putting the cart before the horse. Well, in universal law, you do put the cart before the horse. Like you said earlier, you get happy first and then the stuff comes.
Mm-hmm.
You appreciate first and then the clarity comes. Oh, that's how that was a gift in my life. That's why they were that way toward me. Understanding my mother on a higher level detuned her completely. And it was not a good relationship. It was not a good thing ever, 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 ever. From the time I was born until the time she crossed over, it was just not a good situation. And the more I demonized her and felt like a victim of it, the worse it was. But I had a big turning point pretty early with her. This inner knowing was really guiding me to understand that this is her trauma and her hurt and her experience that she's choosing to have and projecting on me, and I don't have to absorb it. And I had many rounds of lessons in that, though. It wasn't just, it was a light bulb, but, that wasn't it. Especially when it comes to parents, especially mothers, there's a lot of detuning work sometimes that needs to be done. But the stream says your parents' job is to screw you up a little bit because by design, you were born in at a different time than them. So automatically you are a product of your time. They're a product of theirs. There's going to be an automatic disconnect. They're vibrational beings, so you're going to get the high and low of them. So even the most loving parents are going to deliver some things that are going to put you on a path of some suffering. It's just going to happen. But we came here for that as much as we came here for the things that we enjoy. So parents are designed to do that. And when we accept that, that starts the detuning process. But wait a minute. The Matrix tells us that, our parents are supposed to love us unconditionally and they're supposed to be these wonderful people and always just dote on us and be great. I'm a Gen Xer. Our parents were not like that. I think about the stuff that we did as kids that today's parents would never allow. Crazy stuff that we did, really young, crazy stuff that we did, the things I was exposed to. And I love that I was exposed to all of that. So now we have this idea that your parents are supposed to be these perfect beings. I think today's parents are still, this over coddling and all that delivers a different experience for the child. So they're going to grow up, go into adulthood and realize, well, wait a minute, there were things they did with good intentions that I still suffered in, but hopefully they can see how that expanded their consciousness.
Oh, I love that, David. And thank you, Julie. It is a great way to look at parents. So many people are suffering because they can't get beyond, I had a bad childhood. Well, this is the perfect way to view that, okay, you had a bad childhood. That's a factual thing. Now, what are you doing about it? Are you moving forward? Are you
Right.
seeing it for what it really is? And that maybe we chose to come into that situation, into that family, which is one
I completely
stream of
believe that
thought.
we choose our point of entry
I do
for the
too.
experience it's going to deliver. Even if we don't make it out of the womb, we have an experience. Our consciousness has an experience.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the outcome is, there's expansion of consciousness in everything. And certainly coming to a beautiful planet with all these amazing things that we've created and experiencing them, that expands consciousness. But the real expansion, the people that are here doing this stuff, we're the ones that have been through some stuff. And it took us deeper. And that depth has given so much clarity if you allow it to. But if you allow it to destroy you, then that will be your experience. If you want to keep beating that drum of you don't understand, it was so terrible, it was so awful, you're just going to keep recreating it. And some people, again, I think it all expands us. So even people that suffer through a whole lifetime and they depart this world having lived 70, 80, 90 years just in suffering, even that has value from the eternal perspective. And we can appreciate that as well. But we don't have to live that if it's not our choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like what defines you. You know, many
If
people
they're
tell
listening to Terry Angel, they want to be joyful beings. They wouldn't be here they wouldn't be watching Peapods if they didn't want joy in their life, for sure.
right. But many people define themselves by their tragedies and their traumas in life. You know, whether that be a bad childhood, physical illnesses, even mental illnesses, you know, that doesn't define you. And that's what I always like to share with people. What does define you? Find out what you're all about. And as you started off talking earlier in the show, what's your purpose? You know, why are you here? What are you doing here in this lifetime?
I love that. I love the cat. That's great.
I have a photobomb cat that she's, come on, get down. This goes down to another floor, so I really don't want her to fall off of there.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that. That would not be good. Probably land on her feet and be just fine, you know. Cats.
Probably, but it's not my cat, so
oh yeah,
I'm the caretaker at the moment.
It's a loner cat. I get it.
Yeah, they're my loner cats. They kind of chosen to have me as their own for now, though, because at first they were standoffish and now they're like all over me. I'm like, okay, I don't know what shifted, but it's all right. I love cats.
They like your energy. That's what it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing with people as well. You know, we're going to gravitate to those that we resonate with their energy. We're all energy. And that's what I love, is that we can see each other in our energetic state instead of this physical being. This is just temporary. And so when we talk about your purpose, look at your energy.
Exactly. And I was going to say, you're absolutely right about that, because everyone knows vibe. I live in Southern California. Maybe I hear it more, but everyone knows what vibe. Oh, that person has a good vibe, or I didn't like their vibe, bad vibe. But when you say vibration, oh, you're a weird spiritual person. What is that? Well, what do you think vibe means? It's energy, right? It's their energy, and we're all very aware of it. We can sense energy. We are far more sensitive than we realize. And it's interesting that we've created so much technology to communicate globally like this. You could be on the other side. You know, I have people on my show from Australia and all kinds of places all the time, and it's just like this. So we've created technology to get us right back to where we really were in the first place, of being a collective consciousness.
Right.
We just sort of forgot for a while, but now we're getting back to it. We've created technology to get us back to where we already were in the first place.
Yeah. So interesting, the circle that happens, right? Everything is a circle in life. I really believe that. David, you have been a delight. We're coming up to the end of the show. Just wanted to see if anybody had any comments. And Julie says, 2 people, Terry and David, with all this wisdom. We are so blessed. Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for tuning in today, and everyone who tuned in. And David, I'd like for you to take a few minutes and just share more about how people can get in touch with you. I know we've said it and it's streaming, but just let people know what's available if they reach out to you, and how they can work with you. And please share your book again.
Certainly. The book is available on Amazon. It's the TYA practice, the TYA practice, Trust Your Abundance. So it's available now on Amazon. And everywhere else, we're the Stream of David, the Stream of David podcast, the streamofdavid.com, the Stream of David on TikTok. We have both on Facebook, the Stream of David page, and then the TYA Practice Facebook group. So if you're not in our Facebook group, go to the TYA Practice on Facebook and join the group. And I'm on YouTube also. I'm kind of all over the place. It was funny when you said LinkedIn, because that's the one place I don't put much content is on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page, but I was like, wow, LinkedIn of all places. And that's an updated bio too. So somebody updated that at some point, I guess.
Right.
But I like to be active, very active on TikTok these days. TikTok is an interesting thing because there's a lot of freedom of ideas and information being shared there. So much so that it's almost shut down, it seems, but I don't know that it's going to be shut down. But it's a cool platform. It's not just about people dancing. There's a whole lot of interesting information being shared there. A lot of free thinking that's happening there. So it's something that I really enjoy spending time on.
Yeah, there's a lot there that's pretty deep. I have a lot of friends, spiritual friends, that are on there and sharing a lot of beautiful, inspirational messages. So check David out on TikTok for sure.
Yeah. All of those places, you can see everything that we do. We have coaching programs, and I do private sessions and stuff like that. But you can find all of that on any of those places.
Yeah. So I encourage all of you to check out David Strickel, The Stream of David, and TYA, his book. I'm just so thrilled that you were here today. I know we're going to have many more interactions. And in fact, we have a retreat coming up in September. David and I both will be there. We'll be here in Colorado at the Gratitude Ranch of Debbie Sliker and her husband. So keep following us, and you're going to get so much more information and so much wisdom, as Julie says. We really appreciate all of you being here today. If you're not following me, if you came on to watch David today, Angel Speakers is where I'm at everywhere. Angelspeakers.com is my website. I'm Angel Speakers on YouTube and on TikTok as well. And I just have a new book coming out this coming week on the 22nd. I just got the proof copy in my hands just before David came on to the video today. It's Midnight Calls and Dawn Arises. Guidance for your daily journey. And these are channeled messages from the angels. Every night I sit with them and hear what the message is. And then I write it down and y'all get it. So, so this is what happened all of last year in this one book. So look for that on the 22nd. That's when we will be launching the book. The one that just came out was Angels in My Pocket, which is the companion book to Midnight Calls. And I've got a suicidal cat here today. All right. So
that cat's living an abundant life. The cat's fine. Well, thank you for having me on. It was great meeting all of you. And
I think that's called trust, David, right?
Yes. Got to trust the cat's not going to fall over the balcony there.
The cat trusts its abilities to be on something like this little when it's this big.
Indeed. Fearless. Probably there all the time.
Well, thank you so much for being here, David. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the words. You are magnificent. And I just love you. Thank you for being here.
That.
And tune in next week. Peapod happens every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So I'd love to see you all back here again. Take good care, everyone. Stay in your heart. Stay blessed. And we'll see you later. Namaste, y'all. Bye, everyone.